Welcome to Second Earth Alternative. This is Felipe Osario. So today we're going to have a very unusual episode. We usually cover we always talk about possibly covering paranormal topics. We cover UFOs, aliens all the time. Today we're going to be talking about ghosts or entities or whatever it is that I want to share with the audience. It's something that I would like the audience's feedback. This is all true story. This is something that happened to me. I don't know why I never talked about this. I can say that it definitely rattled me as a kid. If you ever watch certain shows, maybe you've watched Coast to Coast AM, one of those paranormal shows, they always talk about don't touch a Ouija board. And I'm a rational person. I mean, I was studying to be, a psychologist. My dad's a theoretical physicist. And I used to tutor mathematics. So I consider myself a logical person. And when you talk about something that's just a piece of cardboard and a piece of plastic, you're like, okay, it's a game board. It's a company named Mattel. So Ouija board to me was nothing at the time. But it came to be that there was actually something that I didn't expect that occurred with this, which was the more I started playing with it, the stronger this thing got. And it was only afterwards that I realized that the Ouija board was actually made by somebody who had visited Africa, who was working for Mattel, and they're trying to figure out a new game to bring to America, something that has never been discovered. And I think the idea came from a voodoo shop. So I think the Ouija board originates from black voodoo magic, from my understanding. I didn't know this at the time. So one example I want to give you what happened with the Ouija board. Some of you may not believe me, but eventually it got so strong that there was like poltergeist type of events, like where I actually saw things get thrown across the room. And one example I want to give was my friends and I, we've been playing with this thing for about a month or so, and we decided to take it to the cemetery, which is stupid, I know. But we take this board to the cemetery. It's like 4 or 5 of us playing, and we started talking to this ghost, well, apparent ghost, we don't know, but the thing was moving pretty fast. It was kind of moving so fast it was almost hard to understand whether somebody could have been controlling it. And we talked to this ghost named Rich, and we're just kind of asking all these questions, and I had actually led the group to that location. We just tried to find a place. There's hardly any lights. You couldn't even see in front of you. We only had a few candle lights. And after a while, I kind of decided to ask this whatever entity, whatever it was that we're speaking, I asked it, "Are you in this graveyard?" And then went, "Yes." And we said, "Well, where are you?" And I swear I've never seen the Ouija board do this in all my time of playing. But instead of going and spelling something out, the thing just rotates. And like almost as if it has like a center axis, it just goes and it stops. And it rotated really quickly. It was just like this. And it just stops. Like a hard stop. And so I look at it and it's pointing at this distant grave. When I say distant, there wasn't a lot of graves at that place, but there's this one little grave behind the tree. It was so dark you can't even see anything. Like you can't even see like 3 or 4 feet in front of you. It was one of those type of nights. So me and my friends walked to the grave with our candle lights, and sure enough, right when we put the candle on the grave site, it says Richard. So suffice to say, we ran pretty freaking quick, ran as quick as we could out of there. So that's one thing that happened while I was playing the Ouija board, but something else that was kind of occurring, and this is the story that I really wanted to get to. We started playing in my house. I used to have this old house in the hillside in a town called Moraga. It's kind of an old town. It was there since I think the 1800s, or maybe early 1900s. It's a very old town. But basically the house that we were at this hillside, I used to have these really strange dreams in this house. And of all the dreams I've ever had in my life, I've never had a dream that was just pure black and white. But for some reason, this dream was just pure black and white, terrifying. I mean, clear as daylight. I mean, it's like when I had this dream, it was like a recurring dream. I knew exactly, that this was this like very strong, very vivid type of experience. And so the dream was basically seeing this old lady carrying a crate, and the crate it looked really old. It looked like one of those weird like 19th century like baby crates that had like wires around it, and it was all black. I could never see the baby. It was completely covered. The lady seemed to be in some kind of like robe-like garments, completely black, like all black. I couldn't see her either, and she would always walk by. And it was like always in my house. Like the dream took place in my house or in front of my house. And it was one particular version of the dream, because it was a recurring dream. I actually saw boulders or rocks that rolled down the hill. And though the boulders didn't hit the woman or the baby in my dreams, I kind of assumed that there might have been some kind of accident, that something occurred there. So fast forward, we're talking about like 7 or 8 years later, because what had happened is I was playing the Ouija board at the house all the time. And then I would get this one particular ghost named Eugene, that's what it called itself. And every time we played, it would just suddenly go really fast. M-A, 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 and it would just be like, like really fast. Like, we didn't know if it was saying mama but M-A, that's all it would go. M-A, M-A, mama, mama, mama. That's what it seemed like. So fast forward 7 years later, 8 years later, I had already gone to college, already graduated with my psychology degree, already worked as a research assistant. I'm back at home, and my brother pulls out the Ouija board, and him and his friends wanted to play. And so I said, you know what, I'm not touching the Ouija board. I never told you, ladies and gentlemen, about this, but I had so many bad experiences with the Ouija board after that I literally had to throw it in a freshwater lake, not freshwater, like a creek that had running fresh water, as some kind of advice from a psychic, because I was getting all kinds of bad luck, all kinds of crazy shit was happening, and it was just the way that I was told I can get rid of this board safely. But my brother had gotten a new board with his friends, and they asked me if I would want to play, and I said no, I don't want to. I never touched the Ouija board since. I just didn't want to touch the Ouija board, so I just stood in the corner and was just chilling out. And then suddenly my brother, I just hear him say, like, it wasn't even him, it was my brother's friend. He goes, oh my God, this thing keeps saying mama, mama, mama. And I was shocked. I turned around and realized that the board was doing the exact same thing. It was going M-A, 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 like really fast. And mind you, I never told my brother about that particular Ouija board experience. Now what was really weird is that I kind of freaked out. I told my brother, hey, just stop playing this board. And it was about I think it was about a year later that my brother was talking to his girlfriend, and he said, yeah, I just overheard him talking, and he says, yeah, the scariest dream I've ever had was in black and white. And I was like, what? And I turn around, And he's like, yeah, there was this like old lady who was carrying a carriage and this baby. And I was like, are you kidding me? So unbeknownst to one another, my brother was having the exact recurring dream as I was. And the only difference between our dreams apparently was that I guess every time I saw the lady and it was like this terrifying feeling that I would always run out of the house. And my brother instead would run into the house. I think that was the only difference that we had in between the dreams. And when I told my brother, he was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So fast forward a little bit, I realized that it was kind of, I didn't know how to interpret the experience, but I said fast forward, but I should be rewinding, because when I was 17 years old, in that exact same house that we were having this recurring dream, this is gonna sound kind of corny. Okay, I had read all these books on astral projection. I had read literally 4 books on astral projection. And for a year, I would meditate almost every day, trying to get to a state where I could eventually astral project. So it actually got to a point where I started getting really, really close. Like really close. I could feel my entire body like shaking, like almost like this, and I would hear this buzzing noise, like that kind of sound, and it feels like my stomach was going through a roller coaster. But every time that would happen, I would have this just like huge fear, like like a fear from the very like bottom of my stomach, and it would always kind of shake me out of it, But there was one time that I actually managed to get out. It was a very surreal experience. I don't know how to describe the feeling of having your consciousness, your whole feeling of essence of being extracted from your body. It's a very surreal experience, but it did feel like I was almost like falling out of a building or a roller coaster in terms of my stomach, and it felt like this peeling feeling, like I just peeled away from something. And then suddenly I was just kind of like floating in my room, and I had a hard time controlling my astral body, or whatever you want to call it. And everything had this like also bluish hue, which I didn't understand. And I ended up going to my parents' bedroom for a second, and I noticed that my mom's shoes she had like these high heel shoes, and one of them had been tipped over. And then I went underneath my bed very slowly, just kind of floating slowly. And I noticed there was like this weird white blob underneath the bed that I was trying to make out. And then suddenly, as I was in kind of like in the ground level, looking at my underneath the bed, I started feeling the texture of the carpet. And something I'll never forget is how vivid the texture of almost as if like, even though it was my astral body, I could still feel the texture. It was, I don't know how else to describe it. It was very strange. It was like I could think to get my hands to go through things, but at the same time I could also get my hands to feel things. That's the only way I can describe it. And just as I'm feeling the texture, I get this overwhelming feeling that something was after me. It's like, when I talk about like terror, it was like a feeling of terror. Like, imagine like there's some psychopathic person chasing you with a knife, and if he catches you, that's it, your life is over. That's the type of feeling that I had. And so the moment that I had that feeling, I thought, okay, I'm getting back into my body, and I literally feel my astral body kind of spin around as if going towards my body, and something literally grabs me. This is true. Something literally grabbed me, and I was like, oh my God. And I tried to yank away, and I couldn't understand why something would have enough force to be able to grab me. And because I always read in the books that if you want to go back to your body, that you have more power or more energy than anything around you. So the fact that something was able to hold me back was really, it confused me. I didn't understand. So I look at the thing, and it's a hand of an old woman. And I didn't know if it was the same spiritual force that I had seen in my dreams. But all I can tell you is there was this old lady's hand that was grabbing into my arms, and then the rest of her body is cloaked out. Like I can't see her, it's just like black, but I could see her hands. And so I yanked once, twice, and the third time, I actually shot back in my body. But the problem is, the moment that I got shot back into my body, I had like complete like paralysis. Like all I could do is move my eyes. I tried, I wanted to move my arms. I was completely conscious at this moment. I wasn't like having the astral consciousness. I was awake, but I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. And the scariest thing about that experience is that as I'm standing there, you know, only my eyes are able to move. I look at the corner of the room, everything's dark, and there is this figure. Like, I swear to God, a figure blacker than black, standing at the corner of the room, just, I presume, watching me. I couldn't see its eyes, but I just had that feeling that this thing was just standing there watching me. And the freakiest thing is seeing something, like almost like you're watching a ghost, but you can't move your body. And I was freaking out. And eventually I could start feeling my toes, and I start feeling my fingers. And then I estimate around 30 to 45 seconds, I finally was able to kind of move my body, and I just ran out of my room. And literally, I was like 17 years old at the time, and I was crying. So when I get to my parents' bedroom, I realize that the first thing I noticed is my mom's shoes, which was exactly how I saw when I was out of this astral body. So, you know, the time scale seems kind of confusing. I was 17 when this happened, and the dreams happened from like, I don't know, like from 16 to 19, and then I ended up going to college. And then when I came back from college and I was 23 years old, that's when I heard that my brother had the recurring dream. And then I started thinking about this astral projection experience, where some old lady's hand grabbed me, and I saw this black figure in a corner that was like black over black. One of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had, which is the reason why I've never tried to astral project since that experience. And then also, just to add to that, I went back in the bedroom eventually, and I couldn't see the figure anymore when I went back to the bedroom. It's as if it disappeared. But when I looked underneath the bed, I noticed a white blanket. And supposedly it was my brother had put that blanket there, and I didn't know that he had put a blanket underneath the bed. But that's what that white blob was when I was, in the astral plane. So the reason why I'm telling you this story and the whole connection with the Ouija board is because I heard something today, and I couldn't believe what I heard. So I'm just gonna play it real quick, and here it is.
Did you ever feel threatened? Did you ever see forms or figures inside the home?
No, I didn't. But certainly what it did for me, and particularly in that old house in Sydney, was that, and this was all around the time where I started doing Mysterious Universe and working with Benjamin Grundy to bring Mysterious Universe to where it is now, that because I was having these experiences, I started having memories from my childhood coming back. And in my childhood, there had been things like I would wake up in the middle of the night to find myself suffering from sleep paralysis. There would be a very darker than dark form that would be standing in the corner of my room, not doing anything. But obviously, as a young child, I would be absolutely terrified, and I would fight as hard as I could. And even today, I remember if I was able to move something, if I could finally kind of wiggle a finger or move my foot, it would break this feeling of paralysis, and I would run from the room. And I'd run down the hallway, and it would be so cold because I'd have sweat pouring over me because I was so terrified by what it was. And I pushed all that out of my mind, and I thought, this is all absurd. But once I had these experiences, I realized that I'd been fighting so hard not to ever face this stuff that it was detrimental. And it's almost like I feel that, especially the way that Mysterious Universe has gone now, that it all had to happen. There's kind of a fate behind it to allow it to come to fruition.
So now you know why I'm sharing you this story. Apparently, this guy also, from Mysterious Universe, he also had seen this black on black figure while having a sleep paralysis experience. So, I kind of wanted to throw it back to the audience and ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think that is? Has anybody else had any experiences similar to that? So I'm just going to leave it off at that. If you want to share to me your Ouija board experiences, poltergeist experiences, ghost experiences, or if you happen to know what that black figure on black was, I would love to hear your commentary. So yeah, that is the episode for today. Thank you for listening. This is Felipe Osorio, signing out.